over to you, Jazz, for your case study.
Great. So just to let you know, this is my logo in the top right. I've got it on every slide. So the product that I created is called Pre-Location. So just to give you a heads up. So just to start with the problem statement. So initially, as part of this course, we did an ideation exercise. And then we had to come up with different problems that we saw in the market. And then the one that I wish to pursue was the fact that I believe that young professionals are finding it frustrating to find an area to live in the city. So just to give you some background as to how this came about. So recently I just started a new job in London and I was looking to relocate and I basically struggled to find a sort of area that I thought would suit me. And also having heard from other graduates as well during the induction process, during like general conversation, that they were also struggling with this or had struggled with this. So I knew there was a problem there somewhere. And initially I thought it was down to finding an area. So we had to drill down into this. And this is what Objective One's all about, the problem market fit. So in order to find out if my problem was acute enough, I conducted some user interviews. 5 of these were within my niche that had been through the problem or were going through the problem. And it did address that the problem was apparent. However, it wasn't just down to finding an area for them. There were other aspects, which I'll go on to in the next slide. But just to give you some overview, the outreach that I did was through direct LinkedIn. So a lot of my professional connections I had recently secured a new job in a new location. And also then, like I mentioned before, during my induction, this new network of graduate cohorts that I've met with had also gone through this, so I utilised those as well. So we conducted some interviews. There was a sort of a process and a plan with a few questions here. One thing I would say that I sort of struggled with was keeping the questions very open-ended. I think when you have a sort of problem in your head and it's one that you've experienced, you think that you have all the answers and you know what the issue is. So it was just making sure that I gave space for the niche to say their side of the story, basically, and to make sure that I wasn't directing them to what I thought was a problem. And this basically then showed that there were other problems to do with this whole relocation aspect for my niche. And one good thing with this template also was the fact that I could group these frustrations. I think when you look at it as a picture overall, you could get overwhelmed by the number of different experiences and different factors that people have mentioned. But once you start to group these, you see the common themes. And these are shown in red. And I've just put a few at the bottom there, just so it's clearer. So the search process is time consuming. They were using multiple sites to get the information that they wanted. There was no real guidance on the process. So this isn't just the process of finding a place, but also how you go about securing that place as well. And then also information asymmetry. So obviously a lot of the information we're getting from, I guess, estate agents, if you're going down that route, is very sales-led information. And we don't know if it's credible because we've not had experience relocating before, being young professionals. The next stage was to sort of turn these frustrations into opportunities. So opportunities, I think, is a really good word, because I think initially we start to think of solutions straight away, and I think solutions can be quite concrete, whereas opportunities is sort of turning the negative into a positive, but we're not completely there yet. We're still on this journey to sort of find out how we can help our niche. So initially, like I mentioned on the first slide, our initial product statement or problem statement was that we believed that they were struggling to find an area in the city, but actually they were struggling to find their ideal city home. And in order to sort of help them through this process, we use these opportunities to then create our MVO, which is a minimum viable offer, which is basically like a statement that you can use that you think is the only thing that would sort of, the minimal product that would resonate with your audience and make them engage with you. So with this, I put down that it would be a single interactive site that would guide them through the whole process. So that was our overall now MVO. In terms of sort of validating this MVO, so we've got the information from our audience through those discovery calls, and now we've come across what we think is the MVO, but we need to again validate this. So it's again contacting that niche just to see if this actually resonates with them, what we've come up with. So we created a landing page and we iterated it to make it look a lot more professional. And you can see mine screenshotted on the right here. Reached out to the network and 18 people viewed the site. 9 people signed up, so good conversion rate. Ideally, I would have liked more people to view the site, but unfortunately, Facebook groups tend to have some restrictions on linking sites, especially the ones that I was looking at, so I couldn't reach out like that. So yeah, that was good. And then we needed to differentiate our offer, and we used a blue strategy canvas, which I'll talk through on the next slide, as well as a product story canvas. And one thing I forgot to mention also was this onboarding survey that we sent out to everyone that signed up as well. And this is again just to validate again what our niche is experiencing. The questions were similar to the ones that we did on the discovery course. So it's again just good to have a lot more feedback and a lot more information about our niche, and just again validate that. The blue strategy canvas I think was really interesting, and I think one thing that stood out for me was the fact that it wasn't to do with features, it was to do with points of value. And initially I struggled to differentiate between those things. But then I think you've got to put yourself in the position of the actual customer. And I think the points of value are the ones that they're gonna be attracted to more so, as opposed to the features. The features are obviously from our side when we're developing the product, but it's not what the customer's looking at. So another thing about this Blue Ocean strategy canvas is that you look at competitors that you wouldn't normally associate with this. So for pre-location, for example, the standard competitors would be such as people like Rightmove, Spare Room, but then also you've got Facebook groups, you've got blogs and articles where, you know, people would find information from to do with the whole house hunting process and looking at different areas. So it was really interesting to look at it from that perspective, and then to visualize it and see where you could sort of differentiate your product. So in terms of pre-location, it's to do with advice and guidance, making it more interactive and enabling the contact between landlords and residents and the user to be a lot more simpler. We then produced a product story canvas, and I think this really highlights that vehicle that you're using to create that transformation from their current situation to their ideal situation. And I think it really helps you to plan out exactly what your product's going to entail and how you're going to sort of tackle those issues and problems that you've discovered. Objective 3, so feasibility and viability. So as I mentioned before in our MBA, we wanted to make this as a one interactive platform. In order to validate that, again, we want to go back to our niche. So we're always going back to our niche throughout this whole process, because they're the ones that are going to be engaging in our product, and they're the ones with all the information. So like I mentioned before, we sent a survey automated to their email once they signed up. So out of the 9 people that signed up, we got 6 survey responses, which was good and really helped to, again, validate those issues that they're experiencing. We then looked to move on to produce a lean canvas and a strategic roadmap, and also a customer journey map, which I'll talk through on the next slide. So the strategic roadmap, we started conducting this in a workshop, and I really enjoyed it. So I worked with Joe on this, and we had to create 10 sort of ideas in 10 feature ideas in 10 minutes. And I think it was interesting to see the different perspectives, because obviously Joe wasn't working on my product to start with, so he'd looked at it from a different perspective. But also the common sort of features that we came together to produce, and that we came up with the same ideas on quite a few things. So I think those were the most prominent ideas that I looked to move forward with, because it's always good if you've got that reinforcement from another colleague and another perspective. And then we put this onto an impact and effort matrix just to see exactly where we should go with which features we should prioritize first. Because obviously, being a brand new product, you don't want to produce a feature factory. You want to prioritize and look at the ones that are going to resonate with your niche and actually provide value for them. So then we put this onto a product roadmap to see exactly what we're going to put into place and when. So you've got that sort of direction to aim at in terms of creating this well-rounded product. But this is always like an ongoing process, so that you're never at the final stage. There's always iterations that have got to occur. So it's just to give you that sort of short-term sort of path. We also created a lean canvas. I think I recall before in a few workshops, Henry, I kept mentioning that I was struggling to understand how I'm going to make this into a business. And I think on the lean canvas, it came at the right step really, because we've got our sort of core plan and our core sort of features now, which we want to go with. So it's about how we interact and then sort of produce a sort of sustainable long-term business, and then looking at the revenue streams and the cost structure based upon what we've come up with. So I think that was really interesting, but yeah, it's something that you could easily start to look at the start, and I think that could then daunt you to sort of progress with some ideas. But I think at this stage, then you're a lot more structured in what you want to do. And then we created a customer journey map. So now that you've got a lot more information on your niche, you've interacted, communicated with them quite a bit, you can sort of put yourself in their shoes, and this sort of helps you with then your product, because it sort of helps you put together your wireframes and how they're going to interact with your product. One thing that's really interesting on this was the emotions that they go through, because I think it's easy to overlook this, and I guess we can look at our customers as robots. They're just going to interact with this product and go through the process. But when you actually look at their emotions throughout it, you're seeing, hold on a second, are they going to get like disengaged at a certain point? Are they going to drop off? Are they actually having fulfillment from the different steps that we're putting them through? So I think that was really interesting. And I've circled there, which is sort of like, as I mentioned, the transformation process. This is their end goal, to secure their preferred place. So as you can see, that's at the end. And then we've got this process before, which helps to map out our wireframes. So initially, I was leaning towards producing a desktop-based product. So I did it on an iPad template because I wanted to show that it could be seen on a mobile as well as a desktop. However, I realized after having some feedback from a friend and also yourself that it was very wordy. I think obviously the greater amount of space I had, I didn't really streamline the information I was providing. And basically in terms of my product, we had sort of need to knows about the industry, some guidance aspect at the start, which was a lot of a text basically, and a lot of what we were making the user do to start with. And I think it's easy for the user to get disincentivized and just to drop off then. So I then looked at making it into an app, and then the smaller screens basically helped me to focus in on exactly what each screen would entail. So I sort of changed it around. I did the requirements stage at the start, so they would input, there'd be series of questions, they'll be engaged, they'll be inputting information, and then in the end they will have their matches, and incorporating that sort of user guidance aspect in terms of like the need to knows of the industries within the different areas, as opposed to bombarding them with information to start with. And then objective 4 is product market fit. So now that we've sort of produced these wireframes, and we're looking to produce a prototype, we want to test and again validate it, because our niche is the ones that are going to be using the product. So we wanted to see exactly if they get fulfillment from using the product. So I onboarded 5 beta testers. Luckily for me, some of the beta testers were graduates that had started at the same company as me, but they've started on UX programs as well. So 2 of them were from that background, but also were looking to relocate or had recently relocated. So I had 2 aspects of the testing done there. So from a user's perspective, consumer perspective, and also from a UX perspective as well, which I think is really good to have. And then this is basically to test to see, once I'd tested with them, they would fill out a survey and to see what the product market fit engine score would be in terms of if they would actually engage in this product, if there's value in it. So in order to onboard them, I sent an email to the ones that had signed up, just simply saying like, thank you for your interest. We would like to test a demo on you. So I guess it's good for them because they feel a bit more priority, a bit more privileged that they're getting to test this out. It puts them first. So they then would book it. It would send a link to their calendar invite, and they would then book a time. And then I would basically tell them to share their screen, and they would then go through the process of using my prototype. In terms of responses, so the first question is just a simple one, just to ask how disappointed they would be if the product was no longer on the market. And 4 out of 5 said that they would be somewhat disappointed, and 1 said not disappointed. So I think overall it's a good score, but I think it's really I've gone over the time, haven't I? I think it's really difficult.
Carry on for a minute or two more. Don't worry.
Sorry. I think it's really difficult to decipher if they're just telling you what they want to hear. And I think this was mentioned in one of the Q&As as well. So I think obviously we'd like to do a lot more testing of this to see exactly if that's the case for a lot more users. This is just a brief, I know I won't have time to go through the prototype, but these are just a few screenshots of how it works. So the requirement stage, you have a few interactive questions, and then the area section gives you more information about areas, allows you to rank them. And this is based upon your requirements. And then you have your matches and where you can register and book viewings as well. In terms of PMF Engine Results, so these are a few like common words and themes that came about when I was questioning after they used the prototype. So things keep being the fact that it was interactive, there was guidance, it's personal, it's tailored. They really enjoyed that all in one. So a lot of these words you see were coming back from before exactly what I wanted to produce. Things to improve. So the biggest word there is Tinder-like. So the matches aspect, some of them were saying you can make this more engaging by having a swipe function, swipe right if you like it, swipe left if you don't. Again, thinking about my niche, if they're using types of apps like that, it would resonate with them and they're more likely to engage and repeat engagement in these apps. And then register later option, and then a lot of words to do with the design and the layout. Put this into an impact and effort matrix, and high impact and low effort options was to improve the design and make the swipe functionality a bit more engaging. And then also have a desktop version as well, which would be last. So then I updated my product roadmap. So step one would just to be iterate the design, and then also just get some feedback on that design just to see if it's actually improved. Second step would be to finalize revenue streams, so to look to partner up with other product promoters and also to promote it on social media to start getting some early adopters. So whether it's the people that are selling products as in their homes or if they're users. And then the third step was to utilize the data better. So now that we've built up some users, we want to again get feedback. Again, it's just to validate that the product's actually working, to see if customers are actually getting the homes that they want, so getting some testimonies, and then afterwards we would look to expand to other cities such as Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool. So to start with, it would be London area. Key learnings. So ideation is not so scary after all. So I think once we got at the start when we was thrown into the deep end, I really did struggle with the ideation thing, but I think I was looking at it from a point of view that you have to come up with something new and innovative, but that's not always the case. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you can improve on an existing problem, which I've done in this case. No question is a super question. So I think working with this cohort, a lot of people have come from different backgrounds, different experience levels. And I think a lot of the questions they were asking, I was thinking myself, and I think it sort of, again, it's really easy to feel imposter syndrome in this industry, but I think everyone's sort of always learning and always growing. So I think it's really good having that whole cohort here. It's as easy to learn new skills. So I've never used Figma before. I've never produced a landing page on Wix, but through a simple tutorial from yourself, so I've managed to do that. So I think it's gonna keep me going, and maybe I can learn future skills as well with a lot more ease. Learn, validate, build, measure, and iterate. So I think this is like a continuous cycle that we've done throughout this process, and this kind of goes to the next point as well, that there's no set plan in product management. I think you've always got to adapt and iterate and grow, but also validate, which is really important. And then the last point is something that I took away, the fact that it's easy to always be solutions orientated and come up with different features, but I think you need to come up with the opportunities and the value first, and then that's what leads to the solutions and the features. And that's one of the big takeaways that I took from this. This is just a little bit about me. So I'm associate product manager at the moment. I'm growing and developing each day, and the learnings from this course are really helping, but also learning off my peers as well at the company that I'm at. I'm focused on product strategy, customer discovery, and effective communication, overall building effective products that tackle acute problems and demand in the market. And then I've just linked my LinkedIn there.
Good. Nice. Great case study.
Sorry.
No, don't worry. It was, I wanted to see that roadmap actually. It was one of the things I was looking for, so it was worth viewing. Good. Right, I'm going to just quickly go through some specifics on the case study, and then we'll look at some high level feedback. I like your problem was very clear. You gave some nice context. Yeah, I'll let you scroll down. On the first objective, 100% You explain what things are. It's like, we did interviews in order to find out whether the problem was acute enough. Very clear what it is, why it's important. I liked your learnings as well. You mentioned like all the other problems that emerged. What you're actually doing, you're showing the value of product discovery to anyone listening. Showing that we do all this stuff because we get good insights. You gave a couple of examples as well, which is always important. I liked how you talked about, I can't remember which slide, you talked about the learning around opportunities, thinking about opportunities rather than solutions. Maybe here actually.
Yeah, I think it was here.
These are different things, but the important point is to say that we need to understand like where the opportunity is and then how different solutions might help us deliver on that opportunity. It's a really important point to explain to other people as well, because it's quite new. Most people don't think about strategy, right? They just jump to features. So you're going to have to hammer that point home, repeat it, explain it continuously. Good. MVO, good explanation of what it is. Why it's important. You're on the objective 2, your next slide. Yeah, the conversion was very high. Now there's going to be a bias there because most of these people, but it's a good indication. Like even your best friends will not bother signing up to something unless there's something in it for them. So there is bias, but it's a good indication, which is what we're looking for at this early stage. I loved how you talked about, we always go back to your niche because they're the ones who know, right? They're the ones we're there to serve. Roadmap was, if we go later on, actually, just skipping to the roadmap. Yeah, sorry, here, actually. There's a good narrative. You sort of explain the different points of it. Sorry, further down, right? Right
at the end, sorry.
Yeah, my fault.
Yeah.
No, my fault. This is very good. Sort of a good narrative. It's clear what the points were. And then final point on the one thing, just be a little bit careful. So things like the feedback, this is the challenge, is like we want to listen to customers but also dig in. So they're mentioning things like Tinder-like, or they want a swipe function. Now what are they actually, what we want to go is, okay, well, what's behind that? Maybe it's because you mentioned it not engaging enough. So you could instead pose the question to your team of, look, how might we make this more engaging? One solution might be Tinder-like swipe, but there may be other ways to do that, probably easier, less effort as well. So see the difference there is it's easy to fall in the trap of, as we do when we listen just to like a boss and build whatever they want, do the same with the customer and get, right, whatever the customer wants, let's build it. We want to, again, think what actually makes sense and really dig into that by asking why. So I'm not saying you did do that, just a word of warning. Good. And then just zooming out, Charles. Yeah, I thought just good, great work really over the 8 weeks. The learnings at the end as well they were really mature. I think they reflected a maturity that you showed, beyond your years in product, which is great to see. You sort of made them your own as well. The roadmap was very strategic and it was well detailed, clearly well thought through. That is something that people with 10 years experience don't do. So that was great to see. That showed, again, a maturity beyond your years of experience. And I think, in terms of next, you're on the right path. I think one thing I would say is do go back to the content, go back to the frameworks, get more comfortable with things like Blue Ocean, get more comfortable with things like the MVO, because your explanations at time were good, but felt a little bit shaky. I didn't feel you're super confident with them. And at times I was like, that's not quite right. So go back to these frameworks and just, whenever you're going to put, at work, whenever there's a time you go, oh, actually, I could maybe use a Blue Ocean, go watch the videos. Then
I have started to use some of the frameworks already, to be fair.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, okay, just reinforcing it. Again, you generally very good. Just you're going to keep reinforcing, get better and better with these. Good. Any final thoughts from your side?
No, I think it's just been a really good 8 weeks. I think it was difficult to start with because we just started with a new company, so it was a lot. Sort of the industry that we're operating in, or the inductions we were having at work, and then to get into this. But I think for me, once I'd learned the different frameworks and things, I was applying it anyway to what I was doing at work. So I think it was really good. And I really enjoyed the workshops because they were really engaging. I never thought like online workshops or any sort of online course would be that fun, but I think it was really good. And it was nice having a cohort with different experiences, because you learn off of each
Nice.
other. So
Nice, that's great to hear. No, as I said, look, you're completely in the right direction. Just it's now just master these things that we've covered and keep going back to them. Awesome. Well, look, thanks a lot, Jazz, and congrats as well. I'm going to send you your certificate on LinkedIn on Slack right now.
Great, thank you.
Great work as well, and hopefully see you either at a meetup at Christmas next year, or we'll be in touch on Slack as well.
Great, thanks for your time throughout this course. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Honestly, happy. I'm always happy to give time if someone puts the work in as well, which you did. So that's nice to see. Well, look, cheers, Jazz. We'll stay in touch over Slack as well with the community.
Great, thank you. Cheers.
Bye bye.